Hey guys, I just want to come back and do the 2010 Halloween watch list, and I'll just jump right back into it. First movie is Jeepers Creepers, and I just watched this last weekend. I still am kind of a big fan of this movie. Not the best movie ever, but if you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth a watch. It's got an interesting setup of the bad guy in this, the killer, the monster, however you want to think of him. The way that they set up the Jeepers Creepers movie is almost interesting to that, structure. As far as the setup might be better than the actual movie. What you do is you get to see the phases of the killer in three different sections of the movie. You get to see the vehicle without the man, then you get to see the shape of the man, and then you get to the revealed version of what it is at the end. And they treat those three sections of the movie completely different. But other than that, it's a really interesting movie. And the sequel, part 2, isn't that great. Part 3, though, supposedly, they're going to bring back one of the main characters from the first one. I don't want to really give it away because it might make a spoiler for the first movie if you haven't seen that yet. The second movie I want to talk about is Bad Dreams. A lot of people haven't seen this yet. And there's a lot of rip-off movies to Halloween, Friday the 13th. This is the first movie I've seen that kind of copies Nightmare on Elm Street. I wouldn't say it's truly a copy, but this is the closest thing you can get to a Nightmare on Elm Street movie that's not an actual Nightmare on Elm Street movie, which makes it pretty unique because that's a hard movie to make something similar to that. But what you have is you have a very different setup at the beginning of the movie, but once the movie starts, it feels very similar to it. And the production value is really well made too. It's a good movie. In fact, there's this one character in here plays the girl Cynthia, Jennifer Rubin. She was in Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and she did Nightmare on Elm Street 3 right around the same time she did this, so that makes it interesting also. But if you've never seen it, this is a pretty good one to check out. It might be kind of hard to find though. It's Anchor Bay, which Anchor Bay stuff's getting tough, but Bad Dreams, that's definitely one I'll be watching again this year. This next movie is Brainscan. I fondly remember watching this around Halloween, about 1994 or something like that. It's around that time. And I don't know why, but it's always stuck with me. It's always seemed like a Halloween movie, even though it's kind of not. But if you've never seen this, very interesting. The main character in this is Ed Furlong. The person that plays the killer, I don't know who that guy is. But the person here is Trickster. Whoever did that did a really, really good job, and you would probably know, I think it says on here, T. Ryder Smith. I'm not really familiar with that person, but sounds really, really kind of like one of those people that I would probably notice without the makeup, I would know who that is. The next one I'm going to put on the list is one of those movies that kind of gets overshadowed by the original, and the sequel isn't mentioned that much, and that's Creepshow 2. I really like Creepshow 2 just because I watched it a lot when it came out. I was looking forward to Creepshow 2 so much because I was a fan of Creepshow 1 when I was a kid, and I knew that this was going to be coming out on video. That once it did, I rented it a lot and watched it a lot with my friends. It's not as good as the first one, but that doesn't mean it's not a really good anthology horror movie to watch, especially around Halloween, which is a good time to watch stuff like that. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, you should definitely check out Creepshow 2. This is the Anchor Bay edition, so that might be kind of tough, like I mentioned before. This is another sequel that I like that kind of gets overshadowed because of the original and also the newer stuff since then, and that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. I really, really enjoyed the beginning of this movie about the most, just because it's such a strange setup, especially for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. When you think of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you think of Leatherface, you think of him chasing people with a chainsaw. The beginning of this is very different. It's these kids out on the road, and they're heading to the OU Texas game, and that's the opening of the entire movie. And then it turns into this weird standoff between them and this truck, like Leatherface and his family and everything. Those people, though, are in a car, which is kind of weird, but it's a nice setup, and I really think that movie gets kind of overlooked a lot. Next movie I want to talk about on the list is REC, or R-E-C. And this is the only foreign film I have on my list this year. I had a couple other ones I thought about putting on the list, but really I think this is about the best one. And I'm in the mood to watch this one again. So this is what I'm going to watch this year for a foreign film. REC which was remade into the American movie Quarantine, are very, very similar. In fact, a lot of people say they're shot-for-shot remakes, and they're really, really pretty close. But they do change a few key elements to the story, especially the backstory, the part that you don't see but that they discover later. That changes it enough that if you've seen Rec 2, because I have Rec 2 also, I've seen that. If you've seen Rec 2, then you'll know that Quarantine's sequel that's supposed to be coming out can't follow that formula that they set up in the original Quarantine. If it's going to make a sequel to Quarantine, it's going to have to diverge from what Rec did when it went to Rec 2. So it's kind of interesting to see which direction this will go, because it does change it. Rec 2 is a completely different spin-off of this, but this is a great, great movie. If you like zombies and you like the realistic side of movies, kind of like what they call mockumentaries or the handheld shaky stuff, if you don't like that stuff, you may not like this, but I think it's really great. The next movie I'll talk about is one of the movies I've got on my list that's a Blu-ray, and it's the Frank Darabont's The Mist, which is based on the Stephen King short story. If you've never seen The Mist, it's actually just excellent. It's a good kind of sci-fi eerie movie that's set up early on. Oh, I just sneezed, so that'll be edited out. If you've never seen this, what I like is the Stephen King story was really pretty interesting. But what Frank Darabont did here that made this more interesting is he kind of twisted a few of the key elements to this story to make it a little bit better than the original, which I can't think of hardly any King stuff that had been changed a little bit and made it feel better. Maybe, if you're a fan of Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, that might be one of the few movies that a lot of people say that they changed it and made it something better. But this is probably the one that I think of. There's also on this, and I don't know if it exists on the DVD or not, but on the Blu-ray, there's a black and white version of you can watch this. It adds a really weird element to this movie when you watch it in black and white. So, The Mist, that's another good one that I recommend. Has a very good ending. The last one I'm going to talk about that's probably, kind of what I think of as kind of hokey and campy and fun, but yet at the same time, it's straight out of the 80s. This reminds me a lot of like Puppet Master and stuff, and there's a reason why. This one here is actually, it was the executive producer was Charles Band, which if you know Charles Band, he went on to do a lot of stuff similar to this. But this is actually directed by Stuart Gordon. So if you're familiar with his stuff, Stuart Gordon, is famous for Reanimator and things like that. This is actually a really well-made movie, and even though it's campy and it's kind of funny to watch, there are some eerie moments in this movie that are actually kind of scary. If you don't like puppets and dolls and ventriloquist dummies and things like that, kind of like I don't, it can still get under your skin a little bit. And for the 80s movie, it's really, really well made. The stock frame animation is top grade. All right, the next movie I'm going to talk about, this movie to me is a very fun but yet a serious zombie movie. A lot of people don't take this very seriously. I kind of do. I really like it, even though it's funny in a few parts. But Return of the Living Dead. To me, this is the quintessential zombie movie of my childhood, just because I watched it when I was really young, and this is the first zombie movie that explained the backstory of how zombies became zombies, and you kind of understood a formula for the madness, you might say. A lot of other zombie movies have gone on to change up that formula to make it disease and things like that. Like if you look at like Resident Evil series, or if you look at the 28 days or 28 weeks later, things like that, it's more of like a virus. It's a disease. This one was the first one that was like a chemical compound. You might say it was like a mutation that caused this. And I don't really remember seeing a whole lot of things other than this that really explained what was going on that turned out to be like that. So if you see this, you will probably get the same kind of thing when you were my age. Now, if you watch this looks pretty campy. And it's fun though either way. I don't think there's very many people that don't like Return of the Living Dead. It's definitely a great zombie movie in general, even if it's not one of your favorites, if you're more of a fan of the Romero stuff. The last thing I want to put on the list is Trick or Treat. I don't think this is a really, really great horror movie by any means. It's not super scary or anything like that, but this is a really, really good Halloween movie. Halloween meaning it puts you into the mood of Halloween. Everything in the story revolves around Halloween related things. It's just a very fun movie. And it seems kind of out of place. This just came out about a year ago on video, but it had actually been in the works for about 2 or 3 years before that. Got discontinued a few times before it was about to come out on video and before it was about to come out the theaters. And it finally got pushed back to the point where when it did release, I think it kind of dated itself. It came out in the middle of a whole lot of other things that were not like it, and I'm pretty sure the studios just felt like this wasn't going to be a movie to make very much money. And probably not. A lot of people, nowadays are not looking for this style of movie. This feels more of like an 80s or 90s horror anthology movie, and I love that about it. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be a big blockbuster because of that. I just think that if you haven't seen this, you should definitely give it a chance. If you like things like Tales from the Crypt, or if you like Creepshow, Tales from the Dark Side movie or TV series, just all those things like that, it feels very natural with those series. So, if you haven't seen it yet, this is a very good Halloween movie. Okay, I'm going to end that. That's my actual, rest of the 10 for my series. The next episode I'm going to do a part 3 on this, which is just kind of for fun, where I'm going to talk about some of the Halloween related TV shows I like to watch around this time of year. And some of them are just a few episodes, other ones are entire series, things like that. And then I also want to talk about my ritual routines, the things I like to do around Halloween. So make sure you stay tuned for part 3, which I will be uploading right after this as soon as I can. And that's it. Thanks, you guys, and take care. Bye.